In question 2, we need to calculate the missing amount labeled A to H. Show calculations. Do not calculate amounts indicated by a question mark. Let's check what A is. A represents cash sales. I only have credit sales for February as we calculated in the previous video. Meaning that since I don't have a percentage, it'll be difficult for me to calculate my cash sales. I need to use the information that I am given to calculate the percentage of cash sales. One option, obviously, I do not have sales, credit sales for March, even though I do have cash sales for March, but I do not have credit sales for March. So I can't use March to calculate the percentage of cash sales and credit sales. I do have January cash sales. And I will go back to the previous question that we answered and check there if I've got credit sales for January. The answer is yes, I do have credit sales for January. All I can do now is to use both amounts to find the percentage of cash sales as well as the percentage of credit sales. How do I do that? I'll start first by calculating my total sales for January, which is made up of cash sales of 330,000 and credit sales worth 1,870,000. It'll give me my total sales for January as 2.2 million. Now, it's your choice whether you want to start with a percentage of cash sales or you want to start with a percentage of credit sales. I will start with the percentage, credit sales percentage. Credit sales percentage, for me to find it, I will simply take my credit sales. Remember, this represents credit sales. I will take my credit sales and divide them by my total sales. Multiply that by 100 to get the percentage of credit sales. Credit sales will amount to 85%, meaning that cash sales will be 100% minus 85%, giving me cash sales worth 15%. Okay, let's calculate A now, since we know the percentage of cash sales as well as the percentage of credit sales. I will start by calculating my cash sales, which is remember we're calculating for February, all right? So in February, I'm only given credit sales. I'm only given credit sales. That's all I've got. I need to calculate cash sales from those credit sales that are given. Now I know that this credit sales represents 85%. The other 15% will be cash sales. So remember the formula. Take what you have, multiply by what you have all over what you, multiply by what you want all over what you have. Take what you have, multiply by what you want over what you have. How do I do that? I am given credit sales, which is already at 85%. I will take that credit sales amount of 2,040,000 multiplied by what I want. I want 15, which represents cash sales, divided by what I have. I have the 2,040,000, which represents credit sales, and credit sales are 85%. I will simply take the 2,040,000 multiplied by what I want, which is 15 divided by 85. That will give me the value of A, which is cash sales. My cash sales will be 360,000. Now we need to calculate B. What is B? B represents cash received from debtors for the month of February. All you have to do is to go back to the previous video. You will realize that the total amount collected in February will be that 1,769,000, and that will be the cash that is collected from debtors in February, which makes our life easy here. B will just be equal to 1,769,000. Okay, let's go to C. What is C? C is simply that severance pay. The severance pay, I'll have to go back to the information that we were given. Before I even go back to the information that we're given, let me check what I have. Normal wages for January was 700,000. Do you realize this? 700,000 represents the total amount of wages that were paid in January for all the workers. From the information booklet, you will remember that, which is from video 1. You will remember that this entity had 200 workers. So 200 workers in total were paid 700,000 rand. All right, going back to this. Only 90 workers were retrenched and they will be paid 4 months of normal wage. So I'm going to take, remember that 700,000 represents the normal wage. I'm going to take that 700,000 divided by 200, which represents the number of employees. 700,000 divided by 200 will give me the total number. Actually, it will give me the total rate that is paid per employee. Take that 700,000 divided by 200,000. Actually, it's 700,000 divided by 2, which will give us 350. It'll give us 3,500. That is the rate that is paid to each employee every month. For 200 employees, for each employee, they will be paid 3,500. As a matter of fact, for January, they are paid 3,500 per month per employee. We want to calculate the severance pay that was paid to the 90 employees. I will simply take this rate and multiply it by 90 employees. It'll give me the monthly total payment made to the 90 employees for the month of February. However, that monthly payment, we need to multiply it by 4 because they're going to be paid 4 months worth of wages. How do I show that? Severance pay per employee, you'll simply take 700,000 divided by 200, it'll give you 3.5. You will take the wage rate multiplied by the number of employees that were retrenched, multiplied by a month, which is simply the number of normal hours or normal wage that will be paid. So we multiply it, it's 4 times the normal wage that is paid to each employee, that is per month. And that is the retrenchment. And hence we simply multiply that by 4. Please note that when you take 3.5, which is the wage rate, and multiply by the number of employees, it'll give you wages paid to all 90 employees per month. But we're not just paying them a monthly wage, we're paying them a wage that is worth 4 months. That's why we're multiplying it by 4. and that will give us severance payment of 1.260. That is 1,260,000. All right. Let's go to the next one, which is D. What is D? D represents cash purchases. Oh, this takes us back to the percentages. In this case, we were given percentages. They told us that cash purchases will be 40%. Let me just go back to the information. Cash purchases will be 40%, if I'm not mistaken, and credit purchases will be 60%. But we need to calculate cash purchases for January. How do we do that? I will start here. Cash purchases as well as credit purchases. Remember, they didn't tell us what percentage was. They didn't give us the markup. So we couldn't even calculate the cost of sales amount because we are not given the markup. However, please note that if I take my January purchases and I multiply it by 60% and I multiply it by 92%, it will give me my credit collections, which is the amount of, actually, I don't want to say credit collection. It is the creditors. It is the creditor's payment period of 66,240. If I take my total purchases for January and I multiply it by 60% and I multiply it by 92%, remember where this 92% comes from. It comes from the fact that of the 100% of our credit purchases, when we make that payment, we will get 8% discount, meaning that we will only pay 92% of the 60%, which is our credit purchases. Why am I using this figure? I'm going to go back to my cash budget. Please note that I'm not given a percentage. I am given the percentage, but the problem is that for January, only for January, I wasn't given, okay? I wasn't given my credit purchases, okay? For January, I wasn't given my credit purchases. What I have to do now is simply take my total purchases, of which is not given, multiplied by 60%, which is the percentage of credit purchases. And when I multiply that by 92%, it'll give me the payment that will be made in February. Why am I using January total sales? It is because in my information booklet, they told me that if I buy goods on credit in January, the payment will only be made in February. I will highlight that. Okay. That's what I meant. So if we buy on credit in January, we'll only make the payment in February. And when we make that payment in February, we will get 8% discount, meaning that we will only pay 92% of what we owe. Hence, we are here. Now, I need to calculate my total purchases. Once I get my total purchases, it'll be quite easy for me to calculate my cash purchases. To calculate my total purchases, I will divide both sides by this 60% multiplied by 92%. It'll give me my total purchases for January. However, please know that I'm only looking for cash purchases for January. So how do I get cash purchases for January? I will simply take that 120,000, which is the total purchases, and multiply it by my cash percentage, which is 40, and divide it by 100. Remember, you multiply by what you have, you divide by what you're given. The fact that I'm given total purchases represents, the total represents 100%. It is complete. That is why I'm multiplying by what I want. I want 40% because 40% of the purchases were for cash. And I will divide that by 100. It'll give me my cash purchases for January. To calculate my cash purchases for January, as I've said, I will take total purchases multiplied by 40%, which represents 40 is cash purchases, 100 represents total purchases. It'll give me cash purchases for January. All right, let's go to E. What is E? E represents payment to creditors for March. Please know that payment to creditors for March, it means that we need to find credit purchases for February because only credit purchases for February will be paid in March, and we will only pay 92% of 60% that we owe. How do we calculate E? Now, for me to be able to calculate E, I will simply say that payment to creditors will be equal to, you have to check what you have. Do we have credit purchases for February? The answer is no. The only thing that we've got that relates to purchases is the cash budget. I'll go back to it, even though I showed you the cash budget so that you can figure out what is going on. Which value from the cash budget can we use to calculate credit purchases for February? Are you aware that for February, we are given cash purchases? And the cash purchases for February amount to 68,000. Percentage-wise, that 68,000 rand will be 40%. But remember, 60% will be on credit, which is what we want. Because this 60% will be the one that is paid in February, but only 92% of it will be paid due to the discount. So we need credit sales for February for us to calculate payment to creditors for March. Hence, I'll use what I have, which is the 68,000, multiply it by 40, divided, actually multiply it by 60 because I want credit sales, and then divide it by 40. Because I'm given, not credit sales, credit purchases. Because I'm given cash purchases, I will divide it, that's 60 by 40. And then it's going to give me my credit purchases. And then I'm going to take those credit purchases, multiply them by 92%, because I'm going to pay only 92% of my credit purchases. Simply take the 68,000, times it by 60, divided by 40 and multiply that by 92%. It'll give me payment to creditors, of which will be paid the following month, which is the month of March. Okay. Let's now calculate F. F represents factory overheads. Oh, I remember this very clearly. We were told that our overheads will increase by 12% from the factory overheads of February. Please note that F is simply factory overheads for February. And note that F will be the increased amount of factory overheads. It will be the increased amount of factory overheads. So from January to February, we are going to increase factory overheads from January by 12% to get the February factory overheads. I repeat, we are going to take January factory overheads and increase them by 12% to calculate February factory overheads. And that will give us the amount of factory overheads paid in Feb. January factory overheads amounted to 310,000. Simply take that 310,000, increase it by 12%. How did I get this 112? You simply take 100% of factory overheads, then we increased by 12%. It'll give us the new amount of factory overheads, which is 347,200. Let's calculate G. Please note that G represents loan repayments, but these loan repayments, they exclude interest. How do I know that they exclude interest? It's because we are given interest amounts. I am going to take the principal amount of my loan. How much is my principal amount of the loan? It is this 5.1 million. That 5.1 million is expected to be paid over 10 years. But it will be repaid every month. So we can't work with years, we need to work with months. How much are we going to pay monthly? First of all, I need to find out how many months do we have in 10 years. For those that are doing pure maths or core maths, you will know that for us to get monthly payment, monthly repayment, we have to convert that 10 years into months. In 10 years, how many months do we have? In 1 year, we've got 12 months, meaning that in 10 years, we will have 120 months. So for me to get monthly repayments, I'm simply going to take this 5.1 million and divide it by 120 months. To show it as a total, I will simply take 5.1 million divided by 120 months. It'll give me my monthly repayments, which will be the same in Feb as well as March. And that will be 42,500. Let's look at H. For H, they just want us to calculate the balance at the end of the month, which is quite easy. You just take your surplus, you add it with the balance at the beginning of the month, which is cash at the beginning of the month, and then it gives you H. If it was a deficit, we're going to subtract them from each other. Hence, to calculate H here, balance at the end of the year will simply be my surplus plus the balance that I had in my bank account at the beginning of the month. That'll give us 569,300. If you have any questions, please send your questions. You can email them or send them on Facebook or LinkedIn, same name, Refilo Ali Jamila. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Please send me a message. As you guys prepare for the exam, please just don't suffer alone. Ask questions if you've got questions. Goodbye for now.